we say good evening. I read a lot of stuff about me. That happened some years ago. See if I can hold up to this. I'd like to start off by saying thank you to all the veterans and thank you for the organization that invited me here this morning. Just an honor to be here, represent veterans. If you're a U.S. citizen and you served in the service, we certainly thank you for. Can you hear me? Want to be in here right here?
Right here is.
How about that? A bit better. So I'd like to thank the DAR, the Veterans of America, and the Cabarrus County Veterans Coalition for putting on this service today. It's true, he read in my bio that I was keep the wind out of the program, that I was a U.S. citizen born in Salisbury, North Carolina. Moved to Cabarrus County at the age of 6. My family moved simply because of a tragedy that happened to my grandfather. He died in a house fire in Salisbury. Therefore, we moved into the next grandfather's residence, which was right here in Cabarrus County. I bred in Mount Pleasant, North Carolina for a couple of years before moving to Concord. And that was an experience to move in the inner city of Concord, where I went to Logan School and graduated from Logan School in 1968. Enough about me. Let's do something a little different that I like to do. If you are a member of the Army and you're a veteran of the Army, you could be current or veteran, I would like for you to please stand and stay standing. The Army. A veteran or a current active duty member of the U.S. Navy, stand, please. If you're an active member of the United States Air Force or a veteran, please stand. These guys, I'm already standing. I know I got some friends out there somewhere. If you're a member of the United States Marine Corps, would you please stand and remain standing? If you're a member of the United States Coast Guard, would you please stand? Or if you are a member of Space Corps, would you please stand? Now, if you know someone who is a member of one of these organizations, please stand. So that means we're all engaged this morning. We're all engaged. I thank you all for all your service to this country. Please have a seat. So normally I'm a guy that speaks without reading. I prefer speaking without going to my notes. Today I'm going to pay attention to my notes so I don't mess up. After World War II, soldiers came back to the United States, returned home with pure admiration from the people that lives in this country. They returned home as heroes from World War II. And many of those veterans that came home from World War II applied for what we know, and I heard it mentioned here earlier, as for the GI Bill. The GI Bill. That was their way of, the United States' way of saying, we thank you for what you did in valor in protecting our country. That GI Bill gave them a pursuit to education, to buy homes, start businesses, while retaining, and some of them retained their duty and stayed on in the service even after they came home. Now, that's a point I want you to keep in your mind, what happened and what was given to those veterans who came home from World War II. Let's move forward, and that bill started in 1944, the GI Bill. It started in 1944. The Vietnam War started in 1955 and ended in 1975. Ended with conflict between the North and the South Vietnamese. The North Vietnamese was backed by Soviet Union, not called Russia at the time, Soviet Union and China. The South Vietnamese were supported by the United States of America and some of you are sitting right here today. Now, in 1956, the GI Bill expired, but then it got extended and extended. It got extended for those who came home from the Korean War and some of those who came home from the Vietnam War. So the GI Bill did reach back to us, although it had been extended, but it had ended, but it got extended to us. And we're right grateful of that. So let's go back and talk about Amos. How did a 19-year-old, at the time I was 19, how did a 19-year-old kid from Cabarrus County wind up as a Marine Corps veteran? Let's take you down memory lane for me, just what happened during my time in the war, or during my time in the service. At 19, I had two little brothers, and I lived in poverty. Not a rich family. My mother was a poor lady, and she was a single mother with 3 little boys. Without knowing that I lived in poverty, we couldn't tell. All we know, we just having fun and eating pretty good for poor people. So moving forward, I got a call when I came home from college, from North Carolina Central, from my mom and said, "You got a letter here from the draft board." A letter. I said, "Tommy, I ain't going nowhere. What are you talking about, a letter?" So I went to see what it was all about. Had to get on a bus. My mom didn't have a car. Had to get on a bus and go to Charlotte. And most of you will have this same story that I have. I got to Charlotte to the draft board, sit down, and just sit there and waited for somebody to call my name. When they did call my name, Amos McClure, let me see this, let me see that. Just barely, and back then had a driver's license without a picture. No picture on the driver's license at that time. But then, while I sit there, they call my name, but not just my name, but the name of 5 other young men who their last name ended in M. Clamrock, Klowski, McClory. This tall gentleman walks up and talks to the recruiter that told us to sit there, had a few words with them, and then he said, "Well, we call your name in the M's. Y'all need to stand up and go with this gentleman." We stood up, followed this guy. We went to another room. He said, "Raise your right hand." I said a few words. He said, "Welcome to the United States Marine Corps." Well, I'm drafted. Followed this guy. I followed instructions. But then he said, "Now, in about 5 hours, we're going to put you on the bus and send you to Parris Island." Well, I come from the country. I thought Parris Island was a hotel. I had no idea where I was about to go to. 5 hours to get to this hotel, where is it? So he said, "You're not going to get to go home. You're going to have to call your parent, if you have a parent, or your spouse, and tell them that you won't be coming home today." I was like, "Wait a minute, I'm not going home? What are you saying to me, sir?" So, get in line. The pay phones were on the wall. Call home, tell your parent you're not coming home. That's a little bit shocking to me at 19 years old. Really? So I get on the phone, I call my mom, and I tell her, they say, "Well, I'm not coming home, Mom. I got to get on the bus and go to Parris Island. I don't know how long I'm going to be down there before I get back." And she didn't know what Parris Island was. And she said, "What's that?" I can't tell you till I get there. Well, that being so shocking to me, I'm like, well, where am I going to go and what am I going to be doing? I get on the bus, we ride all night, we wind up in Parris Island, and step off the bus, and there are a bunch of Marines there waiting on us, calling us, "Look, get off, little girls." Get off. And that was their way of welcoming you to Parris Island. I was in boot camp. So moving forward, but that stress in your life, I had to move on past that. But before I got on that bus, I had a prayer with my mother. I told her, Mom, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know how long I'm going to be gone. But let's pray. And that prayer was that wherever I go to, that I pray that I return home safely. Biggest mistake I made in the prayer right there was leaving out some things that actually happened to me. I didn't know. I should have prayed, don't get wounded, don't get shot, don't get snake bit, don't get spider bit. All those things happened. But I did come home from the war. Now, you gotta know, that's how shocking that is. My trip went a little bit like this. I left Parris Island, went to Camp Pendleton, North Carolina, or Camp Pendleton, California. Got on a plane from Camp Pendleton, went to Hawaii, got on a plane from Hawaii and went to Guam, got on a plane from Guam and went to Okinawa, from Okinawa to Vietnam. When I got to Vietnam, I landed in Da Nang, and from Da Nang, I got on a helicopter and went to a landing zone. And when I get to this landing zone, I'm looking around at stuff I've never seen before. Wait a minute. Is this where I'm gonna stay at? No houses, just tents, some like that, a little bit smaller and lower to the ground and all dark green. When I get to the tents, I see this big tank out at the landing for a huge tank, and I see Marines going to it with their canteens and filling it up with water. Mind you, I'm from home where you get water out of a fountain, out of a spigot or somewhere else, not a tank. And how did that water get in that tank? Then I look around and I get to thinking, oh Lord, I don't know if I'm gonna go back home or not. I hope I do. But then the first thing I noticed in my mind, I hadn't heard real loud stuff before. The loudest thing I've heard in my life was my grandfather's shotgun. The next thing was if you played the bass drum real loud, I heard that in high school. And I heard thunder. Those were the loudest things I've heard at 19 years old. A shotgun, a bass drum in the high school band, and thunder. Was I up for a real rude awakening when the first bomb went off? What was that? 5,000-pound bomb don't sound like thunder. It certainly doesn't sound like a bass drum. And it didn't, my grandfather's shotgun didn't match up. Those things were rude awakenings to a 19-year-old kid in Vietnam and not knowing where home was. Here, if you live in the county where there's no street lights, it gets dark. There, and if you wanted to get even darker, you had to walk in a closet at night and close the door if you really wanted to see dark to compare it to Vietnam. No street lights, no roads, just dirt road. Highway 1 was just one dirt road in 1969. Nothing paved, nothing but hills and jungles, and lots of ants and spiders. So I'm in for a real awakening. But I stayed there, I toughed it out throughout my tour. Right at the end of my tour, when I had 30 days left to go, I get wounded on the rice paddy, shot in my left leg with a 3-3 wound, really went all the way through. I get shot in the neck, and I had a hole in my neck for quite a while, shot twice. I now have that Purple Heart for those injuries. But that was an experience for a 19-year-old. I stayed 19 and I come home just after my 20th birthday, come back to the United States. When I come back, no parade, none of these things that happened to World War II veterans. And it was a reason why that happened to Vietnam veterans, because we didn't come back with a war ending. We came back in piecemeal. You came back when your rotation was up. You came back after your 13-month tour, which means that we didn't come back in enormous numbers. We came back whenever your time is in. So there was no such thing as coming back in thousands and regiments and things like happened in World War II. So no welcome, because they wouldn't know how to put it on in the first place. How do we put every trickling guy that comes back from Vietnam, how do we do a parade for those guys? They couldn't. So they just kind of let us mingle back into our lifestyle when we got back home. Well, that's part of my growing up story, I really grew up in the Marine Corps. My mom used to tell me when I was 9 years old when she would go to work, she said, Amos, whatever you do, take care of your two little brothers while I'm at work. That was a hard job, but it wasn't like crawling through the jungle. Because my brothers didn't listen anyway. They just made like they did when she got home. But you couldn't make up stuff what happened in Vietnam. It's stuff that people should not and will not talk about even to this day because they don't think that most of the time somebody will even believe them. They see things and saw things that shouldn't be talked about in public, but they keep it well within themselves, and that's part of the problem. Now, GI Bill was good. Those of you who are in, especially those who you are elected officials, and you are in a position to help veterans, do what you can. Last year in Raleigh, House Bill 37 was turned down. It didn't even make it out of the House. It got dropped before it got out of the House because they knew it wouldn't pass. House Bill 37. Now, what does that mean for Vietnam veterans? What does that mean for any veteran? In North Carolina, there are 615,000 veterans living in this state. 615,000 plus. Of that 615,000 veterans in North Carolina, 88,000 of them are 100% disabled. 88,000. Of that 88,000 disabled veterans in North Carolina, only 7,000 of them are African American. Out of 88,000, only 7,000. Now, those 7,000 slept beside me, slept beside the white guys that they were in the war. They went through the same jungles, they had the same wounds, but yet they cannot get their disability. That's a problem that we are facing here today. Now, House Bill 37 may go back on. Now, what does House Bill 37 mean? That bill means if you are 100% disabled, and it hasn't passed yet, it's already drawn up and it's written, but we want to resubmit it. It means if you are 100%, that you do not have to pay for your property tax in the county or the state that you live in. Now, before I go any further with that piece, how many of y'all know where Virginia is? Tennessee, Kentucky, Georgia, South Carolina. All of those states surround North Carolina, yet every one of those states have House Bill 37. North Carolina is the only state that's stuck in the middle that does not have this bill, which means that if you're 100% disabled, you don't have to pay your property tax because that bill helps you to save money. If you're a veteran and you pass away with that bill in place in one of those states that I just mentioned, if you pass away, your spouse still continues to have that benefit. If your spouse passes away, your children still continues to have that benefit as long as they keep that property in the family name. The county gains that property back when it's sold or when it's transferred to somebody named other than the veteran's family name. Don't have that here in North Carolina. We'd like to have that, even a portion of that here for 100%, because when a veteran dies, his spouse is left missing a check. She may not be able to afford to keep that property, and she's certainly going to have hardship paying some of the bills. So those other states decided that was a benefit for your service to this country. Just a highlight to say that we still have work to do here in North Carolina, and that is to try to catch up with the continuous states that are surrounding us with a bill that helps their veterans. That does not happen in this state. Now, that's not a knock on our local politicians. That's a knock on I saw Mr. Alden. Pay attention to it when it comes to your desk. Pay attention to it. That's a bill. Now, in some counties, they say that's a tax that we can't afford to lose. But folks, it's only 88,000. There's 100 counties in it that has 100%. You're only talking about the 100% veterans. The veterans who have less than that, they're still trying to get there. 615,000 veterans in this state. We need to do better. I enjoyed coming here this morning. I normally speak on civil rights. I'm better at doing that, but I am a veteran. And I've been a veteran for a while. And now I'm one of those 7,000 that has that 100%. But I don't have a spouse to turn it over to. Stop me from paying tax. It goes away after I pass away. So it's those kind of things that we hope somebody's paying attention to. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. McClory, for attending our ceremony and speaking to us. At this time, I invite forward Kathy Dean, Veterans Chair of Cabarrus Black Boys Chapter, to present the United States 50th commemoration of the Vietnam War.
Thank you, Kareem. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this ceremony honoring our Vietnam veterans on this, our National Vietnam War Veterans Day. The Cabarrus Black Boys Chapter, Daughters of the American Revolution, Cabarrus Veterans Coalition, and Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 909, are proud partners of the United States Vietnam War commemoration. There are over 13,541 local, state, and national organizations that have joined with the Department of Defense as commemorative partners. A total of over 28,640 events have been held so far. 4.1 million Vietnam veterans have been publicly thanked by friends, neighbors, and the community at events like this one. We are privileged on this special day to honor our Vietnam veterans and their families right here in Cabarrus County for your service and your sacrifice. Now, many people ask, why March 29th? Well, the answer is multifaceted. March 29th, 1973 was the day the U.S. Military Assistance Command, Vietnam, was disestablished. It was the last day U.S. combat troops departed Vietnam and was the day that Hanoi released the last of its acknowledged prisoners of war. So you can see March 29th is a fitting choice for our National Vietnam Veterans War Day. In 2017, our Commander-in-Chief issued a presidential proclamation designating March 29th of each year as National Vietnam War Veterans Day to ensure that the sacrifice of 9 million heroes who served during this difficult chapter of our country's history are remembered for generations to come. We honor all those who answered our nation's call to duty. We vow to never again confuse personal disapproval of war with prejudice against those who honorably wear the uniform of our armed forces. With conviction, our nation pledges our enduring respect, our continuing care, and our everlasting commitment to all Vietnam veterans. We gather today to thank and honor the Vietnam veterans living in Cabarrus County and surrounding areas. Accordingly, I ask everyone who served on active duty at any time from 1 November 1955 to 15 May 1975, regardless of location, to please stand so we might recognize your service and sacrifice. Ladies and gentlemen, your Vietnam War veterans. And if their families will stand and join them, you are also to be commended for the sacrifices you've endured for this country. There is no denying that 50 years is a long time to wait. Regardless, it is vital that each and every one of you Vietnam veterans and your families understand the prominent place you now occupy in the conscience of our nation and the high measure of esteem in which you are held by friends, neighbors, and countrymen. While more remains to be done, these accomplishments, along with the establishment of our annual National Vietnam War Veterans Day all point to remarkable progress as we pursue this noble mission. At this time, I invite John Stanley with the Cabarrus Veterans Coalition to present the 50th Commemoration Vietnam War Commendations.
Good day. I'm John Stanley, U.S. Army 6769, 6769, and I was assigned to the Casualty Notification Department of the 6th Army Headquarters. That's why I'm here. I want to thank Corinne and Kathy for covering most of what I was supposed to say, so I will talk about a couple of things that I find absolutely interesting. The CVC is an organization of different veterans organizations. And we have the DAR over here. It is very unique that all that people actually get together and work together. This is a unique thing. This is why we both have, the CVC has its commendation and the DAR has its commendation, because we worked together. Two different, multiple organizations carrying out this. Now over here I see in 2014, the Cabarrus Veterans Coalition asked the county to rename North Cabarrus Park to become the Vietnam Veterans Park. I walk my two Australian Shepherds here every other day for a few years. So when the county commissioner asked me what we wanted, I said we wanted this park. So that's how it became the Vietnam Park. Now on the end here, a couple of things I want to. We have recently lost members. Vietnam still comes around and drags people away. I have lost personally a couple of men in the last year to what happened when they served in Vietnam. That brings those people that came home to die starting to exceed the amount of Americans killed in the Civil War. Can you imagine that? We continue to lose people. Now, I think I said enough about me. So we're going down here, as a token of our gratitude, we present you with the enclosed certificate of appreciation, especially designed for the top performers. That's the end of our Department of Army presentation. So I'm going to go back to Kathy Dean, and we're going to be doing the presentation of the veterans, Vietnam veterans, who have a pin. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And thank you goes out also to all of those members, and I don't know how many we have here today, of the Cabarrus Veterans Coalition, who in 2014 got this park renamed to Vietnam Veterans Park, and who also had this beautiful monument installed to remember our killed in action from here in Cabarrus County. As a lasting memento of the nation's gratitude, the commemoration designed a Vietnam veteran lapel pin with the intent of having the commemorative partners publicly present one to each veteran who served in the Vietnam War era. This beautiful lapel pin features an eagle's head representing courage, honor, dedicated service, the stripes representing our nation's flag, and stars representing the allies who served, sacrificed, and fought alongside one another, all encircled by a ring of blue matching the icon of our national flag and signifying vigilance, perseverance, and justice. The phrase, "A grateful nation thanks and honors you," is embossed on the reverse side along with the commemoration's name. At this time, I'm joined by Ted Sanford, President of Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 909, for the presentation of pins. If there is anyone here today who served on active duty during the duty in the U.S. military at any time between November 1, 1955 and May 15, 1975, regardless of location, that has not received your Vietnam War commemoration pin, we invite you to come forward. We will be privileged and honored to present your lapel pin to you.
Thank you.
Excuse me. You a politician? I'm a county commissioner. That's what you get. That's right.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, man. This is a smile.
That's fine. If y'all want to give that, that's you can vote without state level. They can come up and say, y'all just keep looking for my budget.
that big of a deal. So we ain't blow that around be that big of a deal.
Probably I didn't tighten it up, I don't think, but it's okay. I'll go back and get it.
Put in the
Oh, you're fine. You're not
got,
bothering me.
Hold on.
If there's anyone here today who is a surviving spouse of a veteran who served on active duty in the U.S. Armed Forces at any time during the period 1 November 1955 to 15 May 1975, regardless of location, that has not received their deceased Vietnam veteran's surviving spouse pin, we invite you to come forward. You'll be privileged to present a lapel pin to you. So if you're a surviving spouse, please come forward. On behalf of a grateful nation and Department of Defense, we honor you and your spouse's service and sacrifice in the name of freedom and democracy during the Vietnam War. Our nation is forever indebted to you and extends its deepest respect and admiration. Let's let these men and women know how much you appreciate their sacrifice and service. At this time, I invite forward Eric Culbertson and Peter Vandell for remembrance of Cabarrus County Vietnam War casualties.
Good morning. Corporal Gary Dwight Barbie, U.S. Army. Staff Sergeant Raymond Irvin Baumgardner. Corporal Gary Michael Bowe, U.S. Army. EM2 Franklin Harley Knupp, Jr., U.S. Navy. PFC Gary Stephen Christianberry, U.S. Army. Lance Corporal Jimmy Richard Cox, United States Marine Corps. Captain Joe Wilford Eubanks, U.S. Army. Lance Corporal James Henry Furr, United States Marine Corps. Specialist Troy Alexander Galen, U.S. Army. Sergeant First Class James Junan Gray, U.S. Army. Corporal Robert Lee Haggard Jr., U.S. Army. Corporal William Ronald Henson, U.S. Army. Sergeant Guy Leonard Jewett, U.S. Army. Lance Corporal Eland Eugene Lambert, United States Marine Corps. PFs John Terry McNinnis, United States Marine Corps. Spec 4 David Henry Mitchell, U.S. Army. First Lieutenant Thomas York Osborne, U.S. Army. Specialist First Class, Sergeant First Class John Leonard Partey, U.S. Army. PFC Thomas Peck, United States Marine Corps. PFC Lennon Nesbitt Phillips Jr., U.S. Army. PFC Arnold Reed Richardson, United States Army. Sergeant Glenn Garland Ritchie Jr., U.S. Army. Lance Corporal Richard Leroy Roach Jr., United States Marine Corps. PFC James DeLone Robinson, United States Marine Corps. Sergeant First Class Donald Monroe Shue, United States Army Special Forces.
Dude, can do.
Spec 4 Otis Franklin Thompson, U.S. Army. Correction. Specialist Fourth, Leonard Wayne Watkins, United States Army. DFC Mullins Weeks, Lee Weeks, U.S. Army.
If there are any family members of our Cabarrus County KIAs, would you please stand so we may thank and honor your sacrifice? Gold Star mothers are mothers who have lost a child servant in the U.S. Armed Forces. If we have any Gold Star mothers in attendance, would you please stand so we may thank you? At this time, I invite forward Ted Sanford, President of Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 909, and Mr. Ron Frawley, CVC, to join for the wreath presentation. The unequaled liberties enjoyed in America today are the legacy of brave, strong patriots. In remembering the past, we honor the men and women who gave their lives for the presentation of our freedoms and our future. We, the members of the Cabarrus Black Boys Chapter, Daughters of the American Revolution, the Cabarrus Veterans Coalition, and Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 909, now lay this wreath in grateful recognition of the sacrifice and service of these soldiers, sailors, and airmen from Cabarrus County who perished in the Vietnam War. In honoring them, we pay tribute to all the heroic men and women who have served our nation with integrity and devotion. Now I'd like to call forward Ann Harrison to give the benediction, which will be followed by the Cabarrus County Veterans Honor Guard with a 3-volley salute and taps being played.
Please stand. God, we pray this wreath will remind all who pass by of the life well lived and quicken their response to the ever-continuing call to unselfish service. May the memory of these Vietnam War soldiers, sailors, and airmen be a living presence among us as we meet the challenges of our day. We thank you for all the blessings you have bestowed upon us and our nation. Be with us as we go forth and give us a safe journey. May the peace of God abide in our hearts now and forevermore. Amen.
Honor Guard, perform your duties. Thank you all for attending today to remember and honor our Vietnam veterans. I encourage everyone here to please take a moment before you depart to reach out and shake the hands of our Vietnam veterans and their family members. Thank you and have a safe trip home.
At this time, if we can have all of our Vietnam veterans and their the widowed spouses of Vietnam veterans come forward for a group picture. Thank you.
What did she say?